Are you finding yourself easily triggered, or do you take things personally? Here's why not taking things personally is actually a superpower. Hi, Shannon Waller, and welcome to Team Success. Have you ever walked out of a meeting stewing about what someone else said to you, replaying it over and over in your mind? Well, that meant that you got hooked and triggered. You started to take something personally. I really recognize, and this happened for some experiences where I took things personally and then sometimes where I didn't, just how much not taking things personally is actually a superpower. It leaves you calm and confident when other people are freaking out, when they are stressed out. So I want to talk about why this happens, because I think it's really important, and especially if we want to grow in our entrepreneurial capabilities, if we want to grow in our entrepreneurial leadership, if you want to grow as a team member, the more you can stay grounded and centered rather than upset or triggered, first of all, the happier and healthier you will be, but so will your teamwork. Your teamwork will be happier and healthier too. And I think ultimately that's what we want. We want to have fun at work. We don't want it to be painful or hard. So the whole thing here is that taking things personally happens when we interpret someone else's words or actions as a reflection of our worth or our competence, rather than it really being information about them, the situation, the system, or even the conversation. When you're not taking things personally, it's what I said earlier, it means staying centered. Also, it means you're curious. I still love the line from Ted Lasso, stay curious, not judgmental, or be curious, not judgmental. It also keeps you collaborative instead of reactive or defensive. So anytime you find yourself being reactive or defensive, you are taking things personally. And if you see someone else doing it, that's what's happening for them too. So why does this matter? Great question. Well, first of all, it derails communication. When you as a leader take things personally, you stop listening and you start defending. You have to stand up for yourself. You're right, they're wrong. You want to justify your actions. The other person's going to just shut down immediately because that's what's going to happen. And then the focus shifts from solving problems to protecting egos, especially yours, if this happens to be you or someone else. And I see this happen in meetings all the time, both our own and other people's. People start defending their ego, and frankly, you lose productive conversation time. It just stops. Number 2, it stifles feedback and growth. Teams learn really quickly what topics are unsafe if a leader reacts personally. Over time, honesty and creativity shrink. You get yes people. You don't have someone who will stand up to you. It's interesting, in really healthy teams that I see, in really healthy leadership teams that I see, the people on the leadership team are the ones that are willing and able to speak up to the entrepreneur, to the owner. They're like, hey, this is off track. Hey, this isn't working. Hey, it didn't work when you did this or didn't do that. And it's that willingness to speak up, which is why they are there. So a wise entrepreneur does not want to be surrounded by yes people. They know they're not always right. They need feedback. They don't want to be in an echo chamber. That is not a good idea. You are not going to get the best ideas out of that. You need a little bit of that positive friction, which only happens when you feel safe with one another, by the way. Check out Patrick Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team if you're not sure about that, because when there's people don't feel any kind of safety, then they have fear of conflict. When there's no trust, there's fear of conflict, and people actually never really hash out the issues. So again, not healthy. And then the other thing is it creates unnecessary conflict, not healthy conflict, but unnecessary conflict. Yeah, often what feels like an attack isn't personal. It's a symptom of stress or unclear expectations or clashing perspectives. It's just, again, not productive. And that's our job, is to be productive. And then finally, and I know what this feels like, it drains energy and clarity. Internalizing criticism or resistance uses up the energy that could go toward problem solving or innovation. You're, again, thinking about these things in your head. You're wondering what you did to cause it. You're justifying yourself, your actions, your responses. It's just this swirl, and it's so time consuming, and it's incredibly draining. I would say emotionally draining, and then it can become physically draining as well. This is not what you want. So here is how to think about it differently, to reframe it for yourself a little bit. You kind of want to detach a little bit. You want to emotionally detach, not disconnect. There's a big difference between disconnect and detaching. Detaching just means you have a little bit of space between stimulus and a response. It's not automatic. Although, depending on what it is, for me, it's pretty darn quickly. It happens pretty darn fast, but that is important to you. It's really important to think that emotional detachment does not mean apathy. It doesn't mean you don't care. It simply means you're present without taking everything personally. That is a superpower. This is what I'm talking about. Not taking things personally is a superpower. It allows you to be present, to be alert, to be curious, to be asking questions, to be leaning in, where other people might react and repel and push away and get away from the conversation. This is not you. You're like, oh, that's a really interesting response. I wasn't anticipating that. Tell me more. What are you thinking? What are you feeling about this? Whoa, that's very, very different than going, wee, and just kind of, I was going to say freaking out, but you know what it's like when someone gets triggered and has that kind of response. So you can start to think to yourself, this person's reaction is about their perspective, not my value. This feedback is data, not drama. And I really like this particular point, that you can hold space for emotion without absorbing it. Now, some people with a lot of relationship strengths or feeling chips or sensors, as I like to call them, that you have to take a couple deep breaths, because it is so easy and automatic for you to pick up on what other people are feeling. But it's important to know where you stop and other people begin. So if you are naturally a very feeling person, very, very, very important to have your own personal sense of autonomy and, frankly, a boundary. It took me way too long in life to figure out my boundaries. It's still a work in progress, but I've got there. I would say more often than not, I'm pretty good at this, about what's me and what's not me, because I feel it in my body. It's like, why am I feeling tense? I'm like, oh, there was a conversation earlier in the day that was kind of stressful. And then I'm like, oh, is this me, or am I picking up on someone else's energy? Usually it's someone else's. My experience of myself is I'm pretty, not chill, but grounded at least. So I try not to overreact to things that are not mine. Do I do this all the time? No, I screw up often. But at least I have a ground of being that's me, that I know is not other people. When I was younger, I was all over the map. Let's be honest here. So how can you take action on this? You guys know I always want to be able to be practical about these things. So number one is know your triggers. And I really find the print profile incredibly useful for this. Page 8 is your triggers. And my motivational imprint is a 7, to enjoy life and be happy, and 8, to be strong and self-reliant. So you can imagine that some of my triggers, and I laughed at the entire page. I thought they just nailed it. It's so good. The Paula Hertz group did a brilliant job writing these things down. If someone is endlessly depressing or has long conversation about negative things they can't change, massive trigger for me. Kill me now. Or someone tries to tell me what to do. The term throat punch comes to mind. I'm like, do not do that. Bad things will happen. But I know that, and I joke about it. People with whom I work know not to do those things, and I try not to trigger them either. Now, some people, we just trigger each other just by being. That's a whole other story. Longer conversations today. But we are responsible for our own triggers. And you can say, hey, that's triggering for me. I need to step away from this conversation. I need to get some space. I need to take some time. That is completely appropriate. And do it. Because you triggered is not going to be a productive conversation anyway. So it's in really both of your interests to make sure that each person stays calm. And this also can be tied to the past, or your identity, or something that you're holding in. It probably has almost nothing to do with that particular situation or person. They just triggered something, usually again from the past, that is yet to be resolved, put it that way. I love this one. I'm not really great at it. Pause before reacting. I've been really enjoying watching Jefferson Fisher on YouTube. I think originally he started on TikTok, but that's where I consume a lot of my stuff is YouTube shorts. And he is genius, brilliant. He's a trial attorney who one of his first videos was how to argue like a trial attorney, part 1, and it went viral. Part of the reason why I love Jefferson Fisher, and I got to see him on stage with Chris Voss of Never Split the Difference and Joe Polish, both of whom are gifted communicators. And it was kind of an interview situation. I was like, ooh, I'm a fan. I was fangirling all over it. And he has some great videos on how to do this. He actually showed us a breathing technique. So you can take in, basically a deep breath. And then you do it again, like say 3 seconds, and you do it again for 2 seconds. And then you let it out. And do that when you feel yourself getting tense in an argument, when you feel like you might be being triggered. Breathe. Because when you breathe like that, it resets your, I believe, parasympathetic nervous system. Your sympathetic is the responsive one, like fight, flight, or freeze. But your parasympathetic is what controls your breathing. Rest and digest is that system. So when you take some breaths, you're kind of, or saying, let me think about that. It gives space for a thoughtful response. You're calming down your nervous system. And I'm convinced that we are our nervous system. So a few deep breaths or a pause can be really helpful. The other one, and this one is so true, and it's of every gifted communicator I've ever known. Cy Wakeman comes to mind, of No Ego, did a phenomenal interview. She was amazing on that with her. It's like, separate the fact from the story. What actually happened versus what are you making up about it? One of the best conversational things I've ever heard, mostly between interpersonal skills, like couples, has been, this is what I understand, and this is the story I told myself about that. Oh my goodness, how brilliantly wise is that to be able to say, just separate, this is what happened, and then this is the story I told myself. And then you're checking that reality with the other person. That's advanced. Am I wise enough to do that all the time? Nope. But I do try to recognize when I'm telling myself a story, mostly because I've gotten into trouble with that earlier in my life. You may have too, but I can certainly tell when someone's making up a story about me that's not true. I've called many family members to account on this. I'm like, nope, you are telling yourself a story. It's not true. Please check reality. And then they do. And then we get onto a new, much, much, much better path. So I am adamant about this one. Okay. So what was actually said or done versus what we think it means. Next one, choose curiosity over defense. Be curious, not judgmental. Ask questions like, can you tell me more about what you're seeing? Or it sounds like, it feels like, it seems like. This is Chris Voss techniques and questions is really, really powerful. And I like this because you're actually helping to frame it. Often you're labeling it. It seems like this is really upsetting for you. And they'll go, it's not upsetting. I'm just mad. You're like, great. You're really mad about this. And like, yes, exactly. Then you're understanding and they know that you've got them and you understand. And then oxytocin gets released in the brain and they will start to calm down. It's kind of magical. And you want to do this early. You don't want to listen to a 20-minute story. You actually want to jump in and say things like it seems like, it sounds like, it feels like, and label it as quickly as possible because they will correct you and then you can move forward to the more productive part of the conversation. Another great question, I've heard this a couple of different places, is what would great look like to you if you had your way? And then you get to see what they're actually asking for. And I have to tell you, this one for me has been like, because I would have wanted something very different and usually more complicated. Often what the other person wants is incredibly simple. I would have liked a word of affirmation. I would have liked a hug. I would have liked you to ask me what that experience was like for me. Something I can usually do really easily, but it's not what I would have needed or wanted in the situation, so it doesn't even occur to me. There's a lot of learning that can come out of the question, what would great look like to you? So ask a team member, ask your kid, ask your spouse. Oh my gosh. Such an incredibly useful question. And then lastly, remember your purpose. When your focus is on the vision and what you want to accomplish and impact and service, so this is the result. You're not just in it with the person. Focus on the bigger picture. You have way less need to take things personally. And I find this incredibly helpful, in particular our strategic coach tool, which is not available to the public. It's only available if you're in coach, is called the Experience Transformer. And having people work on it together means that literally they're not facing each other. They're either focused on a piece of paper on a table or they're focused on a common screen where we're filling it out together. You are not at each other. Like sometimes when you're facing each other, it's easy to polarize because you're looking at each other. When you're focused on the third thing, like what you're actually up to, the problem that you're trying to solve, the situation you're trying to resolve, you get a very different dynamic. So very, very powerful to have that third thing. Here's what we're up to. Particularly if you're a leader or if you want to, be a situational leader in a particular circumstance, really useful to say, hey, just to remind everyone, here's what we're up to. We were trying to produce this result for a client. We were trying to solve a problem with the database. Here's the issue that we were experiencing. Let's stay focused on that. What worked, what didn't. knowing what we know now, what will we do differently next time, and then what's our agreed upon course of action. That essentially is the experience transformer. So when you remember the purpose, it takes it away from being polarizing, like, I'm right. No, I'm right. You're wrong. It takes it out of that when you remember what the end result is that you're aiming for. So really important to kind of do this. I know when I've been able to stay calm and not polarize, and I just don't react in the same way, other people calm down. And it's been so great. And people go, oh, I think I was triggered in that situation. It just creates space. Having language are tools. That's why I love them so much. And I love people like Jefferson Fisher and Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference, Black Swan Group, when they provide language for things. So there's so much more you can do once you have that. But again, really observe the situation rather than be in the situation. Take a little bit of that emotional detachment. And I think that you'll find that you're way more effective and that you will help other people be more effective. So one other action step that I want to strongly recommend is go pick up a copy of Jefferson Fisher's book. It is phenomenal. I got a copy at Genius Network. I was super happy. Called The Next Conversation, Argue Less, Talk More. So many good strategies, very straightforward, great context, just completely in line with how I think the world works or could work or should work. I think you'll really enjoy that. So just want to give you a strong recommendation and subscribe to his channel on YouTube. It's great. And then you'll learn lots to get these little tidbits every day that you can put into practice. So again, not taking things personally is a superpower, one that I do wish on everyone. So have fun with this. I hope this has been a useful conversation for you. If you're finding yourself easily triggered, then just give yourself some grace and some compassion. Take a moment to investigate why something is triggering you. It's probably from the past. It's probably not from the present. Take ownership of that. Do whatever you need to do to kind of get settled with yourself. And then you will find that it's so much easier not to take things personally, and you'll feel more grounded, more centered, and more positive and more collaborative, which again is what I want for everybody. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you find this useful and intriguing and that you've gotten some good direction. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know at questions@strategiccoach.com. And as always, here's to your team success.